Welcome to the Impact of AI Explored podcast, hosted by James O'Regan and Gerjon. Created by and for IT professionals, we focus on how AI reshapes our daily work. With AI insights growing every day, we cut through the noise to deliver what matters most. Join us as we explore the latest breakthroughs, share best practices, and empower you to make the most of AI in your career.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impact of AI Explored podcast, where we explore AI and what it does to us, people, in our daily life. This episode, we have a really cool guest, Simon Beiner. Welcome, Simon. Can you tell us a little bit something about yourself?
Of course, and thank you for having me. My name is Simon. I work as a lead architect at Advania Knowledge Factory, based out of Sweden. But I do work across all the Advania markets and have been known to travel Europe and the US and speak at conferences, usually about other topics than AI, but more and more on the AI topic as well. So very happy to be here and looking forward to having a good discussion.
Yeah, so community royalty is present.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call myself that, but I have collected a couple of titles over the years. So I'm a dual MVP in with both Microsoft Intune and Azure Virtual Desktop. I'm also a Nerdio valued professional, Microsoft certified trainer, and some other things. But a community member first and foremost.
And that's how we met. We met at the UC Forum in London, where we also did our last podcast, and we got talking over beers. Yeah, and then
as you do,
here we are.
Yeah,
and here we are now in January, deciding to have a podcast. So
yeah.
Okay, so Simon, obviously we decided that we would have yourself on. One of the areas we decided we would focus on would be kind of AI security and the kind of impact not having security can have on AI and the risks. So maybe if you want to start with, and I know some of the topics you were talking about, you know, the kind of data poisoning within AI models, and obviously we know models hallucinate, but this is way more malicious.
Yeah. And let's start by going back like 20-25 years into Swedish IT history. Because 20-25 years ago, Sweden decided that we were going to be like at the digital frontier and digitalize everything we could. And we were very successful doing that. We have a very digitalized society today. But the last couple of years, we have also seen that we are dropping rapidly in terms of global ranking when it comes to cybersecurity. Because a lot of the things that we implemented and started to create 20-25 years ago are now getting to a point where we either have to replace them or they will be extremely vulnerable to modern attacks. And that's what I'm seeing with AI in general, too, that every single organization on planet Earth is trying to use or implement AI of some sort, which, of course, can have tons of benefits, no question about it. But at the same time, I feel that a lot of organizations are rushing into it without thinking about the security considerations that you need to take before actually implementing it. And we'll get into why that is important now and why I think that you at least should consider security early in your AI journey rather than trying to fix it later on, because that also goes into the data collection and the data you put into the AI models. So I think that's where everything starts off, and where I think that you have two very different views out there. You either have the Terminator crew, which thinks that if we do something with AI, we will all die a very painful death.
Nobody here used the slide featuring the Terminator. Stop that. No. That's complete nonsense. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's one part. And the other part is like, no, AI will only do good. And if you don't use AI today, you will most definitely be out of a job in 6 months because your competitors will have outrun you. And I think we need to figure out the Swedish like middle path in that and find how can we be fast yet secure and build something that's workable in the future.
Sustainable, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we like start with the basics, like what drives AI, that's obviously data. And I'm sure you both have been working with organizations where they've had someone from the IT channel or from a technology partner going out to them 10 years ago and telling them, hey, this AI thing will be big. And to drive AI, you need a lot of data. So therefore, you need to start saving all of your data, collecting data from whatever toilet, car seat, like heater, coffee maker you can possibly find, because data is supposedly the new oil, and save it because at some point you will need it, probably to feed your AI models or AI algorithms with. And that's where we are today. And then we get in
that we've actually run out of data to feed it.
Yeah, and because we have
Already.
now, because we have now created so much crap data using all of these fantastic AI engines, so that the data we have is quite like destroyed. You might have data internally, but it might be the same thing, because who cares if you have your uptime and IO usage of your SON 10 years ago? It doesn't really matter. So the data we feed into the AI models will, of course, impact the value we get out of them. And if we have bad data, well, we might get a bad result. But then we get into like the really bad stuff, and that's when you possibly have had organizations or people that have knowingly poisoned your data. So a very simple example that I usually take is you're monitoring some kind of industrial equipment, and what you're searching for are patterns for when you should replace something. It can be heat, it can be vibrations, it can be sound, it can be whatever. But if you have someone in the supply chain of this data that have inserted something that will skew the data and perhaps show it slightly off, just a little fraction, which is enough if you have tons of data and you're trusting AI to do the maintenance, because it might be enough that you do the maintenance a week later than planned, and this machine will be destroyed because it's ran out of something. And I think that's a concern, perhaps more in the future, but which will be terribly complicated to prevent, since you need to have control of the entire data pipeline, from the sensors out of whatever, all the way through the data pipeline into your AI model. And that's something that also the Swedish agency that does all of the research for our defense have seen, that data poisoning is one of the three main risks they see with AI. That when we have a nation state attacker or something that gets into our essential data, like data pipelines, and start to inject
Bogus
like malicious data, then we have no clue what will happen in the long run. And it might take years before we even notice something. And at that point, we either notice it and something breaks, or we need to throw away all of that valuable data that we have collected.
Yeah, because we don't know
So
what part of the data is still valid and what part is crap. Yeah.
And to make it like a little more like easy to understand, just look at Microsoft 365 Copilot. There were some really cool hacks. We can talk about the things that I don't like with them from Black Hat last year, where you had attackers sending in emails with like text in font size 0.1. So it's absolutely invisible to the eye when you get the email, but Copilot will pick it up. And they showed like how you could ask M365 Copilot for, I need the account details for this customer. And first they would get the correct ones. And then an attacker sent in an email with completely different numbers. And Copilot then returned those false numbers to you. So it's a very simple concept. Yeah, because they're more recent, or they might have sent them to more people. And that's a very like easy to understand and like close to heart way of explaining data poisoning.
Yeah, so we had the cybersecurity thing, where we need to make everything safe because they're going to hack us. But this makes it even more scary, because just with a compromised network, you might not know for X amount of time that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
until you're at the absolute brink of disaster, and then
Yeah.
oh crap.
Yeah. It's like just look at Stuxnet, because that was basically data poisoning. We'll get into the algorithms and so on later on, but now we have protected our networks from data exfiltration for years, but now we also need to be very considerate about data infiltration, because that will impact our AI models and tooling.
Yeah, and try to figure out how you can secure that and also monitor what's happening. And
Yeah.
so they will not replace us for a very long time, AI, because this is the correction needs to be done by us for the coming long
and
run
I
of
think
time.
Yeah, and I think that's like, if we are going to talk about that dystopia where AI will replace us, it won't, as long as we are experts at what you do. So it will be human laziness that replaces us, because if we stop learning because we think that AI should take over that, we have no way of controlling what the AI puts out. And since the AI will only look at the data it's given and assume that we, as their feeders of data, have done our job, you can't blame AI for it. So you need to have the human skills to look at the data that you give to your AI algorithms and ensure, is this reasonable? Which also goes to the decisions. I saw that community friend of mine, Johan Arvidmark, had an absolutely fantastic Christmas shirt on a couple of weeks ago, which stated, "That wasn't very data-driven of you."
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, that was cool.
Because like when we get to the point where I will figure out who said it, but there was someone on Twitter that said you should never allow an AI to make management decisions, because you can't get away from, it's your responsibility. If you have an AI and you let it take decisions for you, you are still responsible for those decisions. But yet we're seeing more and more organizations that wants to go data-driven or AI-driven, but it doesn't take away the responsibility that you have in terms of securing it and ensuring that the decisions it makes is reasonable from a human aspect.
Yeah, it's the thing I always use as an example is a car. You have a car that drives itself. Mine does also do that, and it can park itself.
Yeah.
But if it drives a dent in someone else's car, they're not going to sue the car. They're going to sue me.
Yeah.
Because it's my name on the VIN plate. So
of course.
and it's the same with all these AI decision makers and all these AI things that can help us. Microsoft did a lot of things they can do better on the AI stuff. We talked about naming everything AI, and they just now released the Copilot chat thing, which already there is a Copilot in Edge. They released a Copilot chat, and they also have Copilot chat for M365. So those things they could do better, but what they really did well with naming it, saying, okay, AI is your Copilot.
Yeah.
You're still driving.
Yeah.
It will show you where to go, where to stop, how to do everything, but you're still driving.
Yeah.
And people forget that sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that's also like, if you have a car, like it's easier to think of it like the old style of cars, where you actually had to have diesel or petrol in the car. Like if you fuel your diesel car with petrol, you have given your AI model the wrong kind of data, and it will be destroyed in a most amazing way.
Yeah, in a most expensive way.
Yes, of course, and that's also like we actually talked about that at my own podcast a while back. That we are talking about data as the new oil, but another person said to me, "No, you shouldn't think of it as oil. Think about it as plutonium." Because you can do really good things with plutonium if you use it the right way. You can do sustainable energy. But if you use it in the wrong way, you can make a nuclear bomb. It's the same kind of fuel, but it's what you do with it that really matters. Which takes us into the second big risk that you should be aware of. Like, apart from data poisoning, it's also about protecting the algorithms. And this is where we as a society have a very hard time today, because most of the AI solutions out there are black boxes. We have no clue what's going on inside of them. And I want to be very clear from the start that I might spoil things from an absolutely fantastic documentary on Netflix called Autonomous Killer Robots. If you haven't seen it, watch it because it's fantastic. And one part of it is they interview a scientist. He studies some kind of cure for cancer or other like horrible diseases, and he used an AI model that he trained on a lot of data, and it were supposed to come up with cures for these diseases. And then World Economic Forum in Davos called him and his colleague and asked, couldn't you come to World Economic Forum and talk about what you have done and the ethical like thoughts about using AI when it comes to science? And he, yeah, of course, more than happy to come, but it's super boring to go to a conference and tell, hey, we have done all of these remarkable things. Everyone is happy. We have done fantastic things. We need to have something that's actually questionable or challenging from a like mental point of view. Mm-hmm. So what they did, they took the exact AI model that they had to create these medicines, and they changed one single thing, and that was the result that the model was trying to achieve. Where zero, I think it was zero, were like let's say one. One was a 100% chance of survival for the patient. And that's what the AI model always tried to achieve mathematically, a 1. So just for the fun of things, they changed that single digit to 0 and clicked enter and went away, had a beer. The next day when they come back to the office, they have a hard drive with 40,000 recipes of poisons more dangerous than cyanide.
Whoa.
And like, so the first thing what should we do with this?
Yeah.
So they called their security services and said, hey, we might have done something.
Yeah, we made a
Would you mind would you mind coming over and picking up our hard drive, because we have 40,000 biological weapons that we want you to protect for us. And like it might
or
be
you
it might
just getting a drill and put it through the hard
Yeah.
drive straight away. Yeah.
yeah, you could do that. But I think that's like the extreme, of course, of when you have someone that starts to tinker with your AI algorithms. And for the ones that you buy or use, it's a black box. You have no clue what they change inside of them or what actually impacts the result. But if you do your own AI models, your own AI algorithms, that might also be a target for an attacker. So that's why we still need, like even more than ever before, ensure that when we develop AI algorithms or buy them from a company, we need to ensure that we are in 100% control of whatever goes into those algorithms. Otherwise, it might have quite horrible end results.
Yeah. I haven't looked at it from that perspective, but if you change one screw in the machine might run the other way around. So that's
And it might be like and it might be things like being biased. Like we're of course trying to figure out how to make an AI model that's unbiased, which is incredibly hard since all of our data since the start of humanity is very biased.
Yeah, that's
so
what we
how
do.
can we then so that's how can we tweak the algorithm to be more unbiased? But that of course leads us into a situation where we might like go away from the data, and it might have other impacts that we didn't even understand from the start. So the algorithms is as dangerous as the data poisoning, but might be a little bit more apparent to spot, and it's certainly easier to protect in one way, because it's about like very secure development techniques. If we ensure that we build a robust AI algorithm and have like all of the security practices that we should have around safe software development, the risk should be minimized. But it's something we need to be extra considerate about, because it will actually impact it. The program will run, and it won't be seen as a malware. It will be seen as a piece of software that you trust, and you won't know that it's been compromised until something goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, because it's the same AI agent that you were using before.
Yeah, of course. Like, and if you don't know what you're getting, if you're just going out to some AI company and tell them that, hey, I want an AI model that does this and that, it's again a black box if you can't have someone that actually looks into the code and tells you that, hey, it's actually biased in this direction, or during these circumstances, it will give you a result that you don't expect or want.
No, what you said is that the black box thing. I did an adoption training, and sometimes we do prompt engineering. Say, okay, we'll create a presentation based on a website, and that stopped working at some point. That's because Microsoft changed something, and it wasn't working, but they just didn't tell us. So when you're doing an adoption workshop, say, okay, use Copilot, create a presentation from a website. I cannot do that.
No,
but you could do it yesterday, and after a few weeks, it started working again.
Yeah. And like that, I think that's, and again, that's something that's, again, very close to us. It's a good example of how it will impact your everyday.
Yeah.
Because things that you expect to work at some point might not work because something changed. Or someone decided, hey, we found a security, like a vulnerability, and of course they should fix it. But it's also incredibly hard to communicate that to the users of a particular service.
Yeah.
Because it might be a change in the algorithm that had that impact, even though it was never the intention.
Exactly, but perhaps we were using it for stuff that wasn't the idea in the first place, but it worked, and then they changed something over there, and then here something else changed.
Yeah, and it's also, I went to my wife's class. She's a teacher, so last year she had a third degree class, so they were 9 years old, and we tried Copilot a little bit, and I asked them, just tell me one word each, and it will create a picture of it. And the Swedish word for dragon is drake. And the word drake in Swedish is spelled like Drake in English. So when we entered Drake and pressed enter, it was, no, I can't do pictures of known like celebrities. And it is like it does exactly what you have told it to do, nothing else. And in this case, it couldn't differentiate Swedish from English, and it of course do protect the celebrities, which I think is a good thing. But that's also brings us into the third thing. And in the research that, again, the Swedish defense have done, the third thing they say about how to attack an AI system is to give it something that it's not trained for. Ask it to do something it's not built to do. And their example is if you have a guard AI droid and you approach it and start to dance or just play dead on the ground, this AI will probably look at it and tell you that, no, this isn't a threat. It's nothing that I've been trained to handle, and just move along. And you have tricked the AI. And I think that's what we are seeing to some extent with, again, Microsoft 365 Copilot, but in a slightly different shape. And that's when you train it and you ask it to do things that it's not supposed to do, or where your prompt isn't good enough. And that might both cause it to break, it might ruin the index of which that it uses to train itself, but it might also mean that you don't get the benefit of the AI solution and you stop using it because you feel that this wasn't giving me what I wanted. Mm-hmm. That, of course, minimize the productivity gains that you could get. So I think it's so important that we also understand that any AI model, regardless of what it is, even like Copilot, which can do tons of things, they are instructed to do a limited amount of tasks. There's no like general AI that can do whatever you throw at it today, which means that you need to figure out, how am I supposed to use this and use it properly and understand what it takes to make it to do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And also realize that that's a way that you can abuse it. If you have an AI agent, a chatbot or something, and someone starts to tell it to do things it's not supposed to do, it will have an impact. It might be the new way of doing a distributed denial of service, that you destroy or prompt an AI engine with data or with instructions that it can't comprehend.
Yeah, and then it just maxes out all the CPU, GPU, and NPU power, and
and also destroys the indexes it has. It's a discussion I'm having with many of my customers. Like, what if we do we try to do a pilot of Microsoft 365 Copilot, and we aren't aware of how it actually works and how we should go about prompting and all of this. And then we stop the pilot, and it takes a while. We learn how to use it, and then we come back, and then we have a broken index because we have already started to train it with instructions that it couldn't comprehend. It has no clue of what we're doing, and now we're just coming back to it and telling it to do other stuff. And there's no way to reset an index for Microsoft 365 Copilot, at least not as far as I know, neither on a tenant level or a personal level. So if you train your Copilot in the wrong way, it's forever broken. And that's what I've figured out now when I've changed jobs quite recently. I had Microsoft 365 Copilot at my old job, and we were getting along quite well. It understood what I wanted. And now I have a completely new Microsoft 365 Copilot, which doesn't understand at all what I wanted to do.
But you can't move your index.
No, I can't.
No.
Which would be fantastic. Like, what if I could bring my personal assistant with me between the workplaces I have? The data will, of course, be new. The information that it has will, of course, be new, but it knows the style which I want it to respond. It knows like how it should interact with me. And that's something that we are underestimating, I think, today, how important that will be. Because like I speak to my Copilot as if it were a human assistant. I say hi to it. I ask it kindly to do things. And just imagine if you were to ask like a new assistant, if any one of us were high enough in the hierarchy to have an assistant, and you ask it, give me a coffee, and it will run out and do its best the first time and will probably give me some kind of like mocha, chocolate, vanilla, super soft ice cream latte, which I would just throw it in its face. And it would just look at me, why did you do that? I asked for coffee. It won't help the index. But if I were to ask it kindly the first time, could you please give me a double espresso? Please. It would definitely do what I wanted it to do. And the next time I ask it for a coffee, it knows that I want double espresso.
Yeah.
But that's also where all the training comes in. And it might not have a security implication as such, other than that we might miss out on all of the good things that comes with AI. Because I do a session on this, and it's very dark, very dystopian, because there are like possible dystopian futures when it comes to AI, absolutely. But we shouldn't be afraid of using it. We just need to ensure that we think of all of these security implications at an early stage, and take care of them. And that we also ensure that we shouldn't be replaced. I think you spoke to Brian Madden in your previous episode, and I think he does an amazing thing when he presents, where he places a number on how much AI generated content is it in this presentation. And I kind of pride myself in that when I do presentations, I try to use actual photos made from humans rather than AI generated pictures. I only use AI generated pictures when I can't find the perfect picture. Often when I need a more diverse picture, like if you search for manager on any of these free to use picture databases, 75 to 80% of those pictures will be a white middle-aged man. And if I want a more diverse perspective, I can ask the AI engine to actually create that. But otherwise, I try to make my presentations, even the AI ones, as human as I can.
Yeah, you triggered me also with saying that when you use a bot and you don't train it well, you just could use half of it because the other half of the door stays closed. And good luck with that.
Yeah.
And that there's no way to unlock the door in a later stage.
No, exactly. Like if you have told it, if you have scared it into doing something that's wrong, and often without knowing it, because it's also this changing context. Like if you first ask it, could you please create a PowerPoint of the latest earnings for me? And it does a bad job doing that. And the next thing you tell it, okay, that didn't work. Could you please create a funny picture of a dinosaur wearing a diaper? It will be like, what? And the next time you ask it to create a presentation of your numbers for the last quarter, it most definitely will have a dinosaur in a diaper inside of that PowerPoint. Because that's the only connection it does have. And just imagine if someone were to do that maliciously to you.
Yeah.
Constantly inserting information that would ruin the investment you have made, and you might not even know it. If you somehow give it a constant and tell it that whenever I ask for this number, I want it in pounds rather than Swedish kroner, you might not notice that at first if you're a data scientist. But the finance team will definitely notice it. But hopefully they trust you, the data scientist, enough to tell you that, hey, okay, if this is the data we have, it's probably true.
Yeah.
And then we are in a very painful place.
Very dystopian place.
Yes. Yeah.
And the company might go belly up without knowing why.
Yeah, exactly. Why? Yeah, we made this decision based on the income figures, and those income figures were somehow skewed by either attacking the algorithm or attacking the index or attacking the data.
Yeah, that is food for thought.
Yes.
But it's good to hear that when you do presentations, and James and I also do sometimes presentations, we also do it the old school way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because why? Like, I can get help from AI to do it in some instances. But if I can't do a presentation on my own and take help from other humans that have created amazing content, why do they need me in the first place?
Yeah.
It's like presentation skills, number one. The first rule, you are the presentation, not the actual PowerPoint or whatever is inside of it. It will be the same thing with AI. You can ask AI to create fantastic things, but if you don't understand it or use it properly or trust the data it inserts, the only person you can blame is yourself. And it's your responsibility to deliver that presentation in the best possible way. So I think it's also, we're simplifying things here a little bit just to make it more apparent that how might this impact your daily life. But I do think the more things we see using AI in society, the more interesting the AI side of technology will be for attackers, because it might have an enormous impact. I know that the insurance agency in Sweden are using AI models today, and there have been several journalists the last month that have looking into how skewed they actually are, because it's no one can have done the proper controls of it. The algorithm is so biased in some instances, and we don't notice until it has destroyed the lives of hundreds of people. And someone understands that, hey, this doesn't look right. And then they do a review of it and figure out that, hey, this AI is so far away from what a human would have decided for, because it simply didn't have the correct data, or it made the wrong assumption based on the data. So security also goes for like the use of AI, and if we trust what it puts out or not. When we go too much, we go too data driven, so that we stop using our human capabilities. That's the real dystopia. AI won't destroy us, but we might use AI in a way that destroys us.
Destroy ourselves.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, wow.
So
just an enlightened way to start your day. Yeah. No, Simon, we
sorry,
were talking...
sorry to all the listeners.
Yeah. But looking at the use cases at the moment and how we're just embracing it, and there's a lot of sunny places we can go in the future. A lot of cool things we can decide and can use, but it's what you said. So there's a lot of, one of the new jobs that's going to emerge is data pipeline security engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's true. Like having someone that looks into your entire supply chain of data from when you purchase the sensors in some kind of equipment or whatever it might be, and through that entire pipeline, because there's so many places where you can insert false or malicious data. And the earlier in the process you do that, the more successful, the bigger the impact it will have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think that we will have data scientists that are experts in understanding if someone is trying to abuse our data. Or like what we need today is data scientists that actually understands the data that comes in. They don't just look at it as data, but they actually understand, okay, this is reasonable. This data is
valid or
plausible.
not
Yeah,
valid.
and valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even looking at like the finer details of it.
Yeah. So the data engineer of today also has to understand what he's ingesting.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just a pipeline specialist, but also
No.
a data pipeline specialist, but also
Yeah.
the
And
raw data.
that's why we need to have the data scientists, we need to have the developers that does the models, we need to have the business people that understands the outcome. All of those needs to understand the security implications and challenges of AI. And I want to be very clear, I encourage everyone to continue with their AI development, but don't rush into it, and ensure that you have people with security skills in the entire process of that project now and in the continuation of its usage.
Exactly. From now, from build to decommission.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we were discussing before we started recording, I was wondering, what do you personally use in the AI world of all the tools that are available, and there are about a gazillion and two tools available online. What are your day-to-day
number?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you use on a day-to-day basis, or the things that you find really cool?
So I'm very boring when it comes to AI because I'm very paranoid. So I'm a heavy user of Copilot and M365 Copilot because I think that gives me most of the most value today. But something that I probably tend to use even more is the AI applications in other things. So this camera, as an example, have a built-in AI engine that auto-frames me and do tons of other things. My new laptop, which is a Surface Copilot Plus PC, have all of these amazing AI features built into it. I know James is very skeptical to them. I have a really fun story that James will love. So
I've looked at these and I've gone, okay, we've got CPUs, we've got GPUs, and now we have MPUs. But what is actually utilizing an MPU on a machine? Yeah. And it seems very little at this moment in time to justify. I have a decent enough. I have a Dell XPS, which they've actually killed off the term XPS and replaced it with something ridiculous, which I don't agree with, because the XPS is one of the best laptops that's ever been built, in my opinion. So, I'm just still because obviously I think I'll be getting to a stage where probably next year I might need a new laptop or that, and I just I understand if you're running like an AI model locally, but not many people are really running local models. They're running them all via Anthropic or Copilot hosted on Azure or ChatGPT. So what's the value of the MPU currently?
So, I do think you're absolutely right in that software developers need to understand that they have that opportunity to use it. So it's underutilized today. So the things that Microsoft uses it for is the things that they have shown so far. And like it's like the camera things where it can ensure that you keeps your eyes level. And I used that the first time today because it only works with the built-in camera, not external cameras. So I had a meeting today with a customer and just watched at the screen as I usually do, where your eyes tilt a little bit down. Sure. But the customer said after like 5 minutes, "Simon, this is scary because you're staring at us constantly." So it's like, it's not natural for us to look straight into the camera for an entire meeting, but it does work well, and it does work with teleprompters and so on. So that's two other things now. It also have translation, like voice translation from any source. So if you do a Teams meeting or you have people sitting opposite each other speaking in two different languages, it will actually translate it into a language they might both understand. And then we, of course, have the upcoming things like the smart search, which I was fortunate enough to demo at Microsoft Ignite. Like you can search for something inside a picture, not just for the name of the picture. So if I search for an Irish flag, it will find a picture of that, despite the name of it being something completely different.
Okay, is that coming to OneDrive?
Yes, it is. That was actually announced.
OneDrive search at the moment is next to useless, basically. I've tried to search for, say, I've got something saved that I need, and like I it's like a needle in a haystack. If I don't remember what month I took the picture in, I have no chance whatsoever.
Yeah. And that was one of the things they announced during the keynote at Microsoft Ignite, that feature will be coming to OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams in the future. It's not there today. So today it's local files. And then, of course, you have Recall, which isn't out yet, but that's probably an episode in itself. And I must say, I'm looking forward to it because I'm the perfect user of it. I work with 10 different things at once and forget 9.5 of those 10. So I'm really looking forward to the new iteration of Recall.
Recall 2.0?
Yes. And I'm fairly confident that they've done it right this time.
There's no passwords in clear form and all that, like the way
yeah, they've done tons of things. I think that's an episode in itself. But I again had very early code that I was allowed to show during Microsoft Ignite in the Surface booth on the Copilot Plus PCs. And they've done some really good changes to it, and it works incredibly well, even that very early code. So that's where Microsoft tries to bring value and usage of the NPU to the Copilot Plus PCs today. But of course, the real value will be there when software vendors like Adobe or Autodesk or whatever it might be, or even Office, start to leverage the NPU fully. So that's what I use. I use a lot of Copilots and the various sorts of Copilots, and I use the AI features built into things that just enhances my life, like the computer, like headphones, like cameras, things like that.
Cool.
So very much off the shelf AI.
Yeah. So you're not every night compiling your own data AI agent in the basement and then running it off.
That would be dystopian.
It might be something for the future to do on the weekend.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. When the world ends, you know that Simon started to do software development.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm helping because I also am not good at that stuff.
No.
So let's not do that.
No.
Looking at the time, looking at the all the things we talked about in roughly 45 minutes, I think we touched a lot of interesting subjects and things to think about this evening with a nice beer, because Simon, you are an avid beer aficionado, I might say.
Yeah, I try to. Now, since I can't run due to a foot injury, I've actually promised myself that I won't drink beer until I can run again.
To keep everything in balance, yeah.
Yes, which is very challenging for me. So I went to Cardiff with my wife a week ago on a extended weekend and did my best to compensate for the dry months that will follow.
Yeah. Ooh.
James look even more skeptical now than when we started to talk about the Copilot Plus PCs.
No, okay. So but it's something to think about during a nice beer about the impact
The end of the world.
Yeah, well, the impact AI might have on us, or the things that it might do different without us knowing, if we are not really looking at the output it gives.
Yeah, I think that the key takeaway from all of this is that, you know, we can't let AI out of Copilot mode and put it into autopilot. That's kind of where I am. It's like we always have to be there guiding it and say, no, please don't do that, and stop doing that. Or, you know, its parameters are so tight in what it's do, because we know where this can go. Like, there's even examples with the current ChatGPT model.
Yeah,
someone tried to shut it down, and it tried to actually convince the thing to not shut itself down. So we're already at a level where, if unchecked, it can do some pretty nasty things, and self-preservation kicks in. You know, this was a very tight scenario where the model could not get out. They were trying to see what it could do, but at the same time, it is self-aware enough that it knew that it was trying to be shut down and it needed more resources and was going to go and grab them, but it couldn't, thankfully. But so, as I said, I think very much we're at the stage where, you know, we've talked before, Tesla and their self-driving cars that don't work. Essentially, Copilot is very much you have your hands on the wheel, same as a car. So that's what you are doing going forward. So that's kind of my key takeaway, and where you stay away from the kind of very, the key term we've used this episode is dystopian. I don't know how many times we mentioned it this day. A lot. Yeah. Anyway, but very kind of a really good discussion. So I really thank Simon for that.
Thanks a lot, man.
And yeah, I think still a bit skeptical about these Copilot PCs. I'll see in a year or so where they're at. I am interested to see what Recall 2.0, because Recall 1.0 was a complete disaster from start to finish, and it should never have even made it onto any machine ever. And there, if you want to know more about Recall, we actually did an episode on it. We'll link it in the show notes. You can find numerous other YouTube videos and Twitter threads, Blue Sky, anything about how bad it was. And so I'm interested to kind of see how that comes into fruition, because I like certain parts of the concept of what it does. Because there is times where I go, oh my God, where did I put that thing on my machine? I saved it somewhere. I can't even remember what I called it, but I know it was this, that kind of aid. Because that's what this is about. This is supposed to be an aid for us. So all of these kind of things. But as I said, very much the human has to be at the center of all of these things. And I think that's the key takeaway of this episode.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and with that said, James, thanks for summarizing 45 minutes in 30 seconds.
I'm the AI in this episode.
Yeah. You're the summarize button. Yeah,
I'm the summarize button.
Summarize this meeting, please.
And it's obvious that you took away all of the bad things so that everyone will just run out and do AI without thinking about security.
Yeah. Exactly.
Great.
Just paint a rosy picture about unicorns and rainbows, and then we're all good.
Yeah.
So with that said, thanks everybody for watching and or listening. Thanks Simon again for being our guest and kicking off the new year in style with a great episode and with great conversation. We'd like to have you on again. Yeah, we'd like to have you on again in a few months, perhaps early next year, just to do a follow up and see if the world has turned dystopian or not.
We can talk about Recall 2.0 and how it might have been successful or failed.
Yeah, and we can watch James unbox his new Copilot Plus PC. So that would also be a nice subject.
Perfect.
So, excellent. Thanks everyone for watching or listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah, see you again. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.